Good afternoon, all. Welcome to the Samvat talk on containerization, the next generation visualization for cloud, by Dr. B. Thangaraju. I'm Shivangi Garg with the branding committee, and I'll be introducing the speaker for the day. Dr. B. Thangaraju received his PhD in physics and worked as a research associate from 1996 to 2001 at the Indian Institute of Science, IISc, Bangalore, before joining Talent Transformation, Wipro Technologies. From 2017, he has been working as a professor at IIIT Bangalore and coordinating the Open Source Technology Lab. He serves on the technical advisory panels of Department of the Government of Karnataka, an MOSIP project. His current research focus is in the areas of Linux power management, embedded and real time Linux, wearable operating systems, Docker, Kubernetes, OpenStack, and DevOps. He has published more than 90 research papers in journals and has presented 37 technical papers at national and international conferences. In the advent of server visualization, IT business has numerous benefits, such as being able to provide sufficient infrastructure with limited physical systems, quick system provisioning from a master template, avoid hardware vendor lock in, get better disaster recovery, dedicated virtual system to run application or services, and felicitate to move your infrastructure into cloud environment. The next generation of visualization technology is software container, which is basically on operating system level visualization and not using hypervisual. In addition to the beneficial flexibility that containers offer in various aspects, it has generally simplified the application build, test, and deployment phases, allowing developers to work on identical development environments without any platform constraint. Kubernetes is a production grade open source container orchestration tool. It automates the deployment, scaling, and management of containerized applications. OpenStack is a free open standard cloud computing platform for public and private clouds. OpenStack is even considered the future of cloud computing. In today's talk, Dr. B. Thangaraju will discuss about intricacies of containers, Kubernetes, and OpenStack. We warm-heartedly welcome you, sir, to deliver a talk on containerization, the next generation visualization for cloud. Before we get started with the talk, I would like to thank the audience on both Zoom meeting and the YouTube live stream for attending the talk on behalf of the Samvad team. Please feel free to ask your questions in the chat boxes. We will take the questions at the end of the talk. Now, I would like to request Dr. B. Thangaraju to begin his talk. Thank you.
Thanks, Shivangi. So I place it before the containerization, so the next generation virtualization for cloud. So the agenda for this presentation, it's just to start with the introduction about the virtualization. 1 second, it's not moving. Okay, introduction to virtualization and the difference between the virtual machine and container, and how the Docker is working inside the virtual machine. So the internals about the Docker container and how we can use this container for our lab purpose, and in the spectrum of cloud computing services where we can fit container in between that infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So we call it as a container as a service. And what are the most popular container as a service platforms, and what are the recent marketing research trends and future prospects about container as a service. So this is the agenda for this presentation. Let us discuss with some basics, fundamentals about the virtualization. So today software demands more and more from operating system to applications. So more in the sense, more data, more processing power, more memory, more network bandwidth and storage space. Actually, virtualization is a technology. It will create multiple simulated environments from a single physical hardware systems. So usually we use the hypervisor. First we install the hypervisor and we can start to create the virtual machines. The hypervisor is the software component. It connects directly to the hardware. So what hypervisor will do, it will split one system into separate, distinct and secure environment, which is known as virtual machines. The hypervisor, also we can call it as a virtual machine monitor, is the control system at the core of virtualization. It acts as the control and translation system between the virtual machine and the hardware. But hypervisor also needs operating system level components to run virtual machines. It should have its own memory management, processor, scheduler, input output stack, device driver, security manager, and network stack. The physical hardware equipped with a hypervisor, which is called as a host system, while the many virtual machines that use its resources are guest operating system. If you take any operating system, the core of the operating system is kernel. So it has many subsystems like managing the computing resources like a CPU, memory, input, output, storage devices, network card and all. So it has many subsystems like process management, memory management, file system management, device driver and network management. Actually, kernel is managing all the computing resources and is also called as a supervisor, or we can call it as a resource manager. So inside a host system, the guest operating system will run as a process or task, and hypervisor manages these process management. So it is a supervisor of the guest operating system. So hypervisor is the supervisor of the guest operating system. Since we have many guest operating system running on the top of the guest operating system, so that hypervisor is a supervisor of the supervisors. So it is called hypervisor. So the supervisor changed to hypervisor. And if you see the different types of virtualization, so we have two types of virtualization. One is type 1, that is native or bare metal architecture. Another one is the type 2 hypervisor, that is hosted architecture. So the first figure shows, so without having any hypervisor, without having any virtual machine, it's just as a physical system. Hypervisor, you can install it on top of the hardware. So for example, here, the kernel virtual machine is the default hypervisor for the Linux. So we installed. So on top of that, we can install any type of operating system. So this is a guest operating system. Hardware is the host hardware. But in other case, so we can install the host operating system. For example, in my system, I installed Windows. On top of that, I installed Oracle VirtualBox. On top of that, I can create n number of virtual machines based on the computing resources. So this is a type 2 hypervisor. So container can run both type 1 hypervisor as well as type 2 hypervisors.
Professor Thangaraju, can we ask questions in between?
Yes, sir. You can ask.
Thank you. So this hypervisor, type 2 hypervisor examples, means which is an example like host operating system can be what, and guest like our Linux can be host operating systems, and guest operating systems can be Linux, Windows, Mac, anything kind like that.
Yes, sir. It is possible. So here in my laptop, so I installed Windows as a host operating system, and I installed Oracle VirtualBox, and I created many Linux operating systems.
Okay, thank you. Please go.
Yeah, the host may be Linux or Windows, anything you can install. On top of that, you can install the hypervisor, then you can start to use. But many production system, they will not have that host operating system. They will just take the hardware, install the hypervisor, and started to create the virtual machine.
Okay. Because of the performance point of view, because
performance, we will get the better performance.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So what are the benefits of virtualization? So it is being used by a growing number of organizations. So it will reduce power consumption and air conditioning needs, because you no need 10 different servers. You can take one server and create 10 virtual machines. It's moved to be more green friendly, and trim the building space and land requirements, and reduce downtime, and provides high availability for critical applications. So because of the availability of the virtual systems, the blue-green deployment model, so it consists of two identical deployment platforms. Even if one is failed, using a router, we can route all the requests to the other deployment infrastructure. So generally, green is live system and blue is for the backup. And also it will simplify the IT operations, because they use the concept called infrastructure as code. So it's called the configuration management. So using that, you can write the code to create the server. You can specify all the configurations file, and once you create the configuration management file, then you can just push the code to any virtual system, virtual machines, and you can create application, or you can provision the virtual machines also. So it will simplify IT operation. Write once and you can reuse it again and again. And it will allow IT organizations to respond faster to changing business demands. Because of faster response, the faster provisioning of applications and resources, so we can respond faster to changing business demands. And so once you understand the virtualization, now you have to understand what is cloud computing. So actually, cloud computing is a set of principles and approaches. So it will deliver the computing resources, network storage, infrastructure resources, any different types of services, platform to create your application, and it will create on demand across any network. So how these things will create, for example, in virtualization, you take one system, take the hardware and create many virtual machines. But here we have created a pool of resources from clouds. So from that on demand, we can create the virtual machines. So here resources can be accessed by users on demand through self-service portals supported by automatic scaling and dynamic resource allocations. So cloud computing, the spectrum, it starts with infrastructure as a service. So for example, you need virtual machines or server, storage, load balancer, network. So you can get this service. Otherwise, if you have this and you need only the platform to develop the application, so they will create all the environment and give it to you. Or you want only use it as a software as a service, create only that application and the data you want to maintain, then you can use it. The user can connect to this any of these services through the web browser or mobile application or terminal emulator. So overall, if you see the virtualization and cloud computing, so definition wise, it's a technology. Virtualization is a technology. So cloud computing is a methodology or an environment to get that virtual machine. So purpose to create multiple simulated environment from one physical hardware system. But here you have the pool of computing resources which will automate virtual resources for on-demand use. Configuration is image based. For example, if I want to create virtual machine, so I should have the ISO image for that particular OS. Then using that, I can create the virtual machine. But here it's a template based. They have the configuration file, just like a Kickstart configuration file in the Linux point of view. So once you create the configuration file, you can make it as a template. Using the template, so it will create automatically. So cost wise is a high capital expenditure and low operating expenses. But here there are two types of cloud, private cloud and public cloud. So private cloud, they will use it within the organization, and public cloud, so many cloud providers are available. Using that, you can access the cloud. So here high capital expenditure, but low operating cost, but here it's reverse. So other benefits, it's effective server utilization, because if you have a server, if you run only few applications, so most of the computing resources are not used properly. So if you create multiple VMs, so you can share the hardware resources, so you can make it as an effective server utilization, and easy server maintenance, and separated physical infrastructure. Even if there is some problem, it will affect only to a specific virtual machines, it will not affect others, and infrastructure cost savings. But here it's completely automated management and dynamically scaling up and scaling down. It's possible with the help of the cloud, and it's a self-servicing. So pay whenever you use the cloud computing. Otherwise, it's no need to pay for that one. So both are interdependent. So without cloud, so virtualization, you cannot leverage the complete advantages of virtualization. But in the cloud, without virtualization, cloud, you can use it only to connect the computer through the network. So both are interdependent, but not interchangeable. You cannot change cloud to virtualization or virtualization to cloud. So now we'll move into containerization. So it's a modern virtualization method. So it's defined as a form of operating system level virtualization. So in the virtual machine, it's a hardware level virtualization. Using the hypervisor, you can create hardware level virtualization. It has its own hardware. Actually, it's a virtual hardware. But here in container, we are not using hypervisor. In any operating system, or any hypervisor, you can create the container. So once you create the container, the technology they are using, it's a operating system level virtualization or kernel virtualization. So you can access a single operating system kernel to power multiple distributed applications that each developed and run in their own containers. So application with all depends, you can create the container and all the dependencies and libraries and packages, all these things you can keep it inside and you can create an image. That image, just like an ISO image in the virtual memory concept, but here the Docker image, using the Docker image, you can create a container and you can run a container, and run a container can be run anywhere, even desktop or traditional IT or on the cloud. So if you see the history of the container technology, it has started very long back in 1982. So they are using the concept chroot. So what chroot will do, it will change the root directory to the supplied directory as new root and executes command. So a process or command that runs inside a modified environment cannot access file outside the root directory. So this modified environment is known as chroot jail or jailed directory. So some of the root user or privileged process are allowed to use chroot command. So you want to execute some application as a root, but you don't want to execute as a root. So in that case, you can use the chroot. You can create some isolated environment and you can execute your application as a root. It's called a second root, but that application, even if it is failed, so it will not affect the entire systems. So some of the places they use the chroot initially to create a test environment or to recover the system or password or to install the bootloader. So later they just developed the 2008, they developed the Linux container. So Linux container, they use important Linux kernel features like namespace and cgroup. Then they started to systemd nspawn, so that will create a new process inside the container. Then Docker is a tool to create the Linux container and completely manage the Linux container. But if you start to work with the Linux container directly, it's a very tedious process. So you should have some skills to execute some commands, some scripts, some lengthy commands and all. So Docker, what they did, they make it more user friendly. So they created a tool to manage the complete Linux container. So it is built on a Linux container. Then they moved into the lib container. Then now they are using the runc is the runtime environment with the Open Container Foundation compliant. So many more may come in future, that different open container initiatives, that container format and all. So we have to understand the difference between the Docker and container. So container is an isolated environment which we can create and run on top of the virtual machine or hypervisor. But Docker is a tool to manage the containers. It's an open source tool. So it was launched in 2013, so by a company called .cloud. So after a few months, because of the popularity, they changed the name as a Docker. So it is written in a Go language. The complete source code is available and uses important kernel features, namespace and cgroup. So namespace will create the isolated environment, and cgroup will control the computing resources for the container. And they have yes?
Professor Thangaraju, sorry to interrupt you. Extremely, sir, very nice talk. So can you please give us an example of containers? Means if you said that it is an isolated ones.
Yeah.
So for an example in your system, in these isolated containers, for an example, what are those? And I understood the Docker part. Docker manages the containers. So, but the containers examples.
Yeah, I will show the demo, sir. I will show the demo.
Oh, great.
10 minutes
Sorry.
demo I'll show. I'll log in my Linux system. I'll show how to create the container, run the container, how we can use container for our lab sessions.
Great. Thank you. Please go ahead.
So there are two version of the Docker. One is the community edition, which is available for anyone to download and run free of charge. Another one is enterprise edition. So they will provide some image repository and storage volume. So those kind of additional features they will give it. So it's a paid one, and it's an enterprise license they use it. And if you see the Docker internals, the first one is they use the namespace. So actually namespace are a feature of the Linux kernel that partitions kernel resources such that one set of process sees only their resources. The other process cannot see that. So that way the namespace will create an isolated environment. So when you run a container, Docker creates a set of namespaces for that particular container. So these namespaces provide a layer of isolation. So each aspect of container runs in a separate namespace and its access is limited to that namespace one. So what are the namespaces it will create? Namespace for the process ID and managing network interfaces. So each container, it has its own network address. So in my system, it has only some 2-core processor in a virtual machine, 2-core processor, 4 GB RAM and 50 GB storage. So I have created, I have run some 1,000 containers parallelly. So it was working properly. And IPC namespace, so interprocess communication mechanisms. So managing access to all the interprocess communication mechanisms like message queue, shared memory, semaphores. So it has its own limitations, and we can use it separately for the containers. And mounting for the file system and mount points, and the Unix time sharing namespace for isolating kernel and version identifiers. So here you can see that it's a host kernel. The kernel is shared by the containers, and the booting the system. So it has the C group namespace and device mapper. So device mapper is nothing but to communicate from or mapping from virtual hardware into the physical hardware. Then on top of that, you can get the Ubuntu image. For example, if I want to get the container, so what type of container I need? For example, I want Ubuntu container, I need CentOS container or Fedora container or Red Hat container. So I can download those containers with that image. Then on top of that, whatever the environment to develop my application, so I can install all the necessary packages and you can freeze it as your own image. Once you get that image can be portable. For example, here you can develop the application and execute it. Once everything is working properly, then you can keep it in the Docker registry, that may be the public or private. So anyone can download the Docker container and they can run the container and they will get that same environment. They no need to install anything. They directly test the application, and if they want to add any new features into the application, they can do it directly. So apart from namespace, the another feature is called the control groups, that is C group. The C group feature, even you can use it without having the container also, because the C group will be very much useful to allocate the resources or limit the resources for the certain processes. So it will use that memory C group for managing accounting limits and notification. And if you want to allocate the huge pages in the main memory, you can use the huge translation look aside buffer C group. And if you want to allocate some of the processor to a container, that pinning to the processor of CPU affinity, you can set it. And block IOC group will manage the storage devices, and net CLS and net priority C group will create the network segmentation for the containers. And finally, the devices C group for reading, writing, access the devices. So the Docker is nothing but it has the Docker engine. That Docker engine combines the namespace control group into a wrapper called a container format. So they use that the default container format is libcontainer. It's a library as a reference implementation for containers. So it built on top of libvirt. So libvirt is a virtualization technology library for using any type of hypervisors and Linux container, and this will help to create a process inside the container. And here they use the C group namespace and the security enhanced Linux and some of the capability function. For example, if you're a normal user, if they want to load any kernel module and all, so the permission will be denied. So those kind of capabilities, that access permission and all, and netlink to communicate between the user space to kernel space, it will help, because the container will execute as a process inside the host operating system, and and it has its own PID, and according to the kernel, it treats container as a process, that's all. So if you see the Docker architecture, it's a client server architecture. The client talks to the Docker daemon. This is a Docker daemon or Docker engine we are using inside that one. So which does the building, running, and distributing the containers. So both are in the same system. In the client system, the Docker host as well as the client are in the same system. Docker registry, it's available outside. So they can download the images, pre-built images. So if you want to develop any application, for example, I want to create the continuous integration Jenkins environment, or I want to create some automatic deployment using Rundeck. So you no need to install anything and create your own image. So instead of that, if you go to the Docker Hub or Docker registry, more than 50 lakhs images are available because of the thanks to the open source community. They have created all the images whatever you require for your development environment. You can just go and pull that image, and just using that image run the container, and you can manage the containers. So it will build the container using that image, or you can create the Docker file or Docker Compose file. Using that you can build the image, and Docker pull will pull from the Docker registry into your local system, and Docker run using that image, it will run the container. So if you see the virtualization and container, the difference between the virtualization and container. So virtualization is the hardware level virtualization, but container is the kernel level or operating system level virtualization. So virtualization typically measured by the GB. So you can see that based on the how much space you are storage space you are allocating in the virtual machine. But here, if you download the Ubuntu image, so I can see that it's less than 75 MB size. And this is for the traditional IT architecture, but this is the emerging IT practices. And this is for traditional legacy and monolithic workloads. But here it will create the cloud native development and continuous integration or continuous delivery or deployment and DevOps. So cloud native technologies generally used to develop applications built with services packaged in containers and deployed as microservices and managed on elastic infrastructure through agile DevOps process and continuous delivery workflows. The term cloud native generally they use to describe container-based environments. But here in this case, all the code in the virtual machine, all the code and the dependencies in one place led to oversized virtual machine that experienced cascading failures and downtime when pushing updates. So if you have these monolithic kind of applications, so you have a lot of interdependencies. So if you want to update or if you want to add any new features, so it may create some of the issues. But here they are using microservices. The microservices means a complex application is broken up into a series of smaller, more specified services. So each microservice has its own database and its own business logic. So using microservices, development teams can focus on updating specific areas of an application without impacting it as a whole. So which results in faster development, testing, and deployment. So that is the advantage of using the container. But if you are using monolithic and legacy applications, so we have to start from scratch to move from VM into the container. So what are the benefits of container? First is portability. So you can get the container and install all the necessary things, and you can make it as an image and you can port it anywhere. And agility. So because the creation or stop the container, running the container, it's very fast. So software developers can continue to using agile or DevOps tools and processes for rapid application development and enhancement. The speeding up starting times because there is no operating system to boot. So fault isolation, if there is some issues, it will affect only to that container. It will not affect other containers. So efficiency, so compared to the virtual machines, it will access the very less resources. So you can create more number of containers and it will increase the server efficiencies. Ease of management. So there are, if you have one or two containers, then you can manage it easily. But if you have thousands of containers in a real production environment, so definitely you need some tool to manage the complete containers. So for that, they have the container orchestration tool, which is called the Kubernetes, which is one of the most popular orchestration tool in for container management. So that will do automates the installation, scaling, management of containerized workloads and servers. And security, so security permissions can be defined to automatically block unwanted components from entering containers, or also you can limit the communication with unnecessary resources. So here I just start the demo. So Docker for lab. Actually, a few years back, I have published this work in one of the international journal, Linux Admin Journal. And in my previous organization also, I have tried this. It was working well. So I'll just show you the demo. First, I'll share the entire screen. So, okay. Okay, here I have a Linux system. Okay, here itself I can show you. So here, Windows operating system. On top of that, I installed the Oracle Virtual Box. So here I installed the virtual machine. That virtual machine is running inside. So using SSH, I just created a shell here. So here I can just check. So the first step is, so you have to use apt-get install docker.io. Okay, first you have to install this Docker daemon. So I have already installed, because it may take some time. That's why I have installed many of the things, but I'll just show you. First, we have to check that services. So system CTL status Docker, whether that services is running or not. So we can check it out. Okay, it is running, it's active, it is running. So this is the service, this is the Docker daemon. And I have to pull the image, pull Ubuntu. So once I execute this command, the control will go here. So Docker Hub is here. So in this Docker Hub, I can just sign in. So if you want to push it, then you have to create the user account. So once you create the user account, then you can see that whatever the containers are available, I have created and push it. So anyone can download, then they can start to use it. So for example, I want to pull Ubuntu, so I can check it here. So you can see that Ubuntu image and how many downloads you can see it. Okay, so the command is docker pull Ubuntu. That's all. Once you execute this command after installing the docker.io, so it will download and it will install in your system. So I have already downloaded. So I just check with images. So I have already downloaded Ubuntu image. So this is the template, or we can tell that it's an ISO file kind of thing in the virtual machine point of view. So this container I have to run. So before that, just check, is there any container is running in my system? So no container is running. So here I have created a simple shell also. Before that, I just create a input file. I have created some 10 user account. In this 10 user account, I just execute the script. So that script I'll just show you. Just it will read the file and create the container IT name. So Docker create, so interactive mode, and I need the shell, and I want to give the name. Name is it taking from this user 1, user 2, user 3, and Ubuntu image, and I want to use the shell bin bash. Okay, so here I just create /create this one and just execute. So user.txt. So it is creating 10 containers. So within a second, it created 10 containers, and I can also check docker ps-a. So all the 10 containers have created. Suppose I want to run any one containers, for example, user 1 containers I want to run. So docker run, so -it, or just I can start and attach user 1 container and bin bash. Okay, you cannot start and attach multiple containers at one. Okay, docker start user 1, starter the container, and docker attach user 1. Okay, now I am inside the container. So now you can see the difference between the container and the host operating system. So here my host operating system is there. Here container is there. So if I run the top command here, so how many processes are executing? You can see almost some 230 processes are executing, but actually I'm executing only one container. Remaining processes are related to the system processes. But here inside the container, if I execute the top command, I can see only two processes or two tasks. One is the bash shell, another one is the top command. So nothing, no other processes are running. And if I want to execute man ls, man command is not available. If I want to execute GCC, GCC is not available. If I want to create file, you cannot create. So it has very bare minimal image. It's a raw container, it's running there. So this environment, so for example, I want to create some programming environment. So in that case, so what I have to do, so first I have to start with the apt get update. Then I have to install the VM and I have to install the GCC. So once I install those things, then after that I can freeze it into my own image. The same Ubuntu container, I can freeze it into my own image. So I have already done that work. So here, if you want to check the network, you can check the network here. So it is 172.17.0.2. But in this case here, so you can check if config. So the IP address is different. So 10.0.2.50. Okay, so each container, it will create its own IP address. So if you want to come out from the container, you can come out. And if you want to remove the container, so just a Docker RM, and we have to use the Docker ps-a-q. So it will remove all the 10 containers within a second. So now you can check no container is running. So dynamically you can create the container, you can run the container, you can delete the containers. So one Docker images I have created for the programming environment, the IIITB test container. So just I run this container, Docker run. I keep it my own name. Sorry, before that -it. I want to give my own name user1 and IIITB test container and bin bash. So now I am inside the container. So here I have installed GCC Vim. Okay, so and I have created the user account also. I can go to the directory. I can check the file. A.c file is there. Just check the file. So through Vim, just a hello world program, and I can compile the file and I can execute. So the complete environment, application development environment you can create. And one more thing, so whenever they are working in online, for example, some student is doing some lab exercise, if they face some issue, so they can contact the faculty or TAs, so they can just check the logs of the container. For example, here Docker logs user1. So I can check whatever I have executed here. All standard input, standard output, standard error, everything you can capture through the log messages.
Sometimes,
Yes,
quick, sorry to interrupt. Is it possible to launch GUI also from inside containers?
GUI is not recommended for the Docker containers.
Okay.
So, but we can do it, but it's not recommended because it will take a lot of resources.
Resources, right? So effectively, we'll have to run some window manager and then all that stuff.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Professor Thangaraju.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I have another question, little basic, because we are from that world of programming. So if you remember, we used to write routines or sub-functions programs independently, one after .h like that in C, C++. Then you used to call those programs into our main program while executing that. Okay.
Yeah.
At that time, virtualization was not there and all this container. So what is the fund here? Also, we are creating container and the Docker is calling those container as a one sub function, like what I understood, if I'm right. Or so what is the fundamental difference? How this Docker and container is much more efficient or better than those classical programming kind of things?
Okay, this is not only programming environment. For example, if you want to create a web server or iSCSI server or any network server, email server, you can get the one container and install necessary things, and you can create as a web server. Then you can push it into the Docker Hub, so anyone can download. Then they can run it as a web server. And if the system load is heavy, then if you want to dynamically increase the number of containers, then you can do it very easily with some small script.
Okay,
So
got
not
it.
only for programming. Programming, why I have taken is the simplest example I'm explaining.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so sometimes if the student is facing any issue when they are working on that one, so for example here I'm using VMstat is running, so if they don't know how to stop, okay, so here what I can do, I can
Professor Thangaraju, just
Yes, sir.
one more question we'll take from the student who's put it here in the chat while we are answering questions. So the student has asked, Pallav has asked, could you throw some light on communication between containers running services for the same application? Suppose commands A and B are executed in series and the service container receives that these in reversed order. So how is a robust container communication pipeline designed to avoid such a situation?
Okay, then we can go to the container orchestration tool like Kubernetes kind of thing. So they will provide the complete GUI environment, so you can communicate, you can do the failover mechanism, and there are so many other things we can do. I think I'll cover some of the things in the slide itself.
Yeah,
Oh.
sorry to interrupt, Professor Tangaraju and Jaya. This is Meenakshi here. Just one more related question I had. You had one of the points you mentioned in your earlier slides. You said that because of this containerization, fault isolation is easier in the sense that fault may not occur, but there will be some kind of inter-container communication, right? Communication between I view container as a partition.
Okay, container is mainly focused for microservices. So
They will
microservice,
communicate between
yeah,
each other, right?
communication we can do it. So communication we can do it.
So there will be faults related to, like you had mentioned, no, the various ways of communication. There's handshake, the shared variable, there is buffering.
Yeah.
So there would be faults, classical, what do I say, distributed system faults, data races, and other things that will come related to that, right?
No, what if the
It cannot be
security is
fault
the,
free.
no, if the security is the concern, so in that case, instead of using the Docker container, we can use the Kata container. So Kata container is more security enhanced container. That container itself has its very minimal kernel. So even if there is some issues, it will affect only to that kernel. It will not affect the host kernel.
Okay.
So that way we can do it. I'll explain all these things. So I can execute it from the host system. I can just execute a Docker logs -f user1. So I can also view, so what is going on in this container. So for example, I just come out and just execute some other command. I just execute some top command. So the student can work in the container from the host system. The faculty can see that what is going on, and even if they face any issues and all, so they can fix it quickly, and later also they can see how what are the different ways they try to solve the issues and all this. So this way this will be very much useful. So in the Docker Hub, so we have installed many we have pushed many containers for our lab and all. Okay, so here, so this I have created 5 different images. For example, if I want to conduct the Unix admin lab, or some of the program debugging lab, or Java development, or any for developers, and assessment also we can create using this one. That's a hands-on based assessment. We can create it here. So once you execute this script, it will ask us how many students they are going to work in this lab. So you can specify the number, then you can choose the image. So each faculty, they can create their own image to install the necessary packages and created their own container and create the image. Those images, they can keep it in the system, and they can specify so which image you want to run it. So once you choose the image, then it will create that many user account and set the password also. So if you want, you can also create the username and password separately, and you can feed that input file, and it will create the Docker container. And the important point is it will go to the user home directory bash profile, and it will execute this command, start command. It will execute. So once the user set the IP address and log in as a user one and give the password, they will be inside the container. there is no way they can go and access the host operating system, or even they cannot execute any Docker command because they are inside the Docker container. So inside the Docker container, we can keep the lab exercise. And if you want to give some learning material, all these things, we can keep it and ask them to do it. So once they complete, so we can see that output, as well as we can see that how they have tried, what are the commands they have tried, all these things we can see. And when they are working, even if you want to help them, so we can just using the Docker logs -f real time, we can see what is going on. And even we can attach that running container and we can fix the issue and we can ask the student to continue. So all these things is possible. So after the lab, so we can execute this script, a simple script that will remove all the containers within a second. So this way, just I propose one idea, so we can use it for our lab purpose also. So every time we no need to go and install or inform to the data center to go and install these packages, all these things, we can avoid it. We can reduce a lot of time. Okay, so containerization is one of the latest developments in the evaluation of cloud computing. So it's the foundation of private cloud and are becoming a game changer for many organizations. So they call it as a container as a service. So it's a computer cluster that is available through the cloud, and we can use it to upload, create, centrally manage, and run container-based applications on the cloud platform. The user interaction, it can be through GUI or through the command line, you can use it. So it's a new business model whereby cloud computing service providers offer container-based virtualization as a scalable online service. So instead of giving the virtual machine, they can give the container. So it typically refers to a complete container environment. It will include that orchestration tool, so that will take care of many of the things, the communication between the containers, failover mechanisms, and dynamically scaling up, scaling down. So many things it will take care of that by that orchestration tools. And you can create your own Docker Hub inside your organization itself, and complete cluster management software for particular service you want to run parallelly by many containers. So you can create a cluster of services, and built-in functionality for auto scaling. So you can set the threshold. So once it reaches the threshold, automatically it will create the new container for the specific services, and a set of developer tools and application programming interface. And if you see the spectrum of cloud computing, where this container as a service will fit. So you can see that on premises, so without having, it's like a typical data center, or infrastructure as a service, they will provide till here. Then after that, you have to develop. Or platform as a service, they will give the complete platform, cloud provider, and you can develop the application and use the data. Or they will give complete build the application, so using that browser or web, so you can access your application and you can use this one. So container as a service will fit in between infrastructure as a service and platform as a service. But container as a service is most commonly positioned as a subset of infrastructure as a service. So there are two types you can use it. So for example, you want to take infrastructure as a service. So after virtualization, instead of installing operating system, all these things, you can download the container image and you can create the runtime environment, middleware, or application data, everything you can create. This is a raw container you can download from the Docker Hub, and you can create complete environment. Otherwise, you can ask that vendor to provide that environment. You can just download the container image and just start to develop your applications. So two ways you can do it as a container as a service. And there are many cloud providers, they support container as a service platform. So the most popular CAS platforms are Amazon, Microsoft, and Google Container Engine. So the advantage, because the container as a service market is experiencing significant growth due to demand for the technology. The cost advantages, because the cloud provider will charge based on how much computing resources you are using. So since it will use very less resources, so cost advantages are there. And increasing trend in microservices, because that incremental features and all these things for the software product, it's possible. And software firms are already in the market, and many big companies like Google, Amazon, and IBM are funding the advancement of technologies. So we can see that Amazon itself, they are providing Elastic Container Registry, and that container services, highly secure, reliable, and scalable way to run containers, and some serverless compute for containers, and the Kubernetes services they are providing here. So apart from AWS, Azure, and Google, so Red Hat OpenShift also, it's a Kubernetes based container services they are providing, and IBM also they are giving some of the services related to container as a service. So if you see the recent trends and the marketing trends of container as a service, so I just follow this 2020 State of the Cloud report from the Flexera. So actually they explores the thinking of 750 global cloud decision makers and users about the public, private, and multi-cloud market. So 73% of enterprises have a central cloud team or cloud center of excellence. So COE, Cloud Center of Excellence, they have. So they have contacted to different types of company, whether the company has 1 to 1,000 employees, small and medium sized businesses, and enterprises and other organizations. And also they have, because the business in almost all industries leverage cloud computing. So this report covers a broad range of industries also. And if you see that response by region, so it's South America, North America, and Canada, Brazil, and Asia Pacific region, so including India. So get the input from different parts in the world. And the public cloud adoption, it is increasing year on year, because the three major leaders in this space are AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud. And also the report measures how the COVID pandemic might affect the cloud plans. So because virtually all countries have implemented stay-at-home policies for consumers and work-from-home policies for employees and shutdowns of non-essential businesses. So cloud usage was higher compared to the initial plan. The reason may be due to increase is a result of the extra capacity needed for current cloud-based applications to meet increased demand as online usage grows. And also it will accelerate migration from data centers to cloud in response to reduce the headcount in the data center, difficulties in accessing data center facilities due to COVID pandemic, and delays in hardware supply chains. So cloud providers offer a more reliable options for business continuity, even though it's in the COVID time. So that's why you can see that it's a significantly higher than planned. You can see in total or enterprise or small and mid-sized business also. On some of the top cloud initiatives, if you see that, so the optimizing the existing use of cost, that cost saving is the top one. So next one is moving the traditional applications or traditional software product into the cloud space. That is one of the biggest challenge actually, and the expand use of the containers. So compared to the previous year, it is increasing 51%. So because the organizations move more workloads to the cloud, they can once they move their workloads to the cloud, so they can retire the technical debt associated with the maintaining and operating traditional data centers. So, and also container usage helps control cost because they allow more efficient use of infrastructure. So what are the container tools they used in year on year? So containers are now in mainstream. The use of Docker and Kubernetes continues to be considerable. So many organizations are choosing container as a service offerings from public cloud providers like AWS, Azure, and Google. And the key difference between the providers, that is very important. So what way they show the difference? Their offering is typically the container orchestration platform, which handles the key tasks like container deployment, cluster management, scaling, reporting, and lifecycle management. So they use variety of orchestration platforms, including Kubernetes, Docker Machine, Docker Swarm, and Fleet from a core operating system, or Nova Docker for OpenStack users. On top container related challenges, so the first one is the lack of resources, because it's a new technology it's very difficult to get the employee with the Docker skill, container skilled people and expertise. Second one is the migrating traditional application to containers. So because of this newness or the relatively new technology, so it is very difficult to get the employee to work on the container space. And also migrating traditional application to containers, it's a very big issue because containers are optimized for microservices, but while traditional application is not microservices, it's a monolithic kind of things. So these are the biggest challenges if you want to migrate from your traditional application into the container side. And if you see the public cloud services used for enterprises, so database as a service is the top one. The next one is the container as a service. And also it is increasing that people responded that whether they are planning to experimenting the container as a service or plan to use, that is also increasing year on year. And here, actually in 2019, the container as a service is in the 6th place, and now it is moving to the 2nd place. So because the shift may be due to growing interest in leveraging containers to speed deployment, scaling operation, and increase the efficiency of workloads running in the cloud. And these are the top growing cloud platform as a service. So all the 5 are the fastest growing for both the years, and container as a service is in the 2nd place. So because this growth rate of various cloud services, it will provide the visibility into how enterprise usage is changing over time. And related to R&D work, so we have published a lot of papers related to this area. So Docker management using JMeter, so it's one of the testing automation tool for Java. And this whatever I explained the Docker for lab, so it was published in these 2 papers. On container orchestration with Kubernetes, so most of the work it's our students project elective work and MS or PhD students, they have done this work. And intricacies of Docker networking, so this is a very challenging one. So for example, if you are communicating within the host, so communication is very simple, but one container is running in one host, another container is running in different host. So how do you communicate between these 2 containers? So we took that problem and work on that and come out with the solutions. So intricacies of Docker networking. So here we are not using any Docker orchestration tool. Everything we did manually. And if you want to run the container or you want to work with the container in the Windows system itself, so how we can use it? So for that, so we have published these papers. And OpenStack is one of the private cloud, and it's a complete open source platform to create the cloud environment. So we took some component and tried out OpenStack load balancer as a service. So we tried this. And the conference presentations. So this one of the MTech thesis. So we use the Kubernetes and created the microservices and automated completely. Deployment automation we have done with the help of Rundeck deployment automation tool. Sorry. And another one is software-defined networking for Industry 4 using OpenStack. So it's done by Nitya Ganesan, one of my PhD students. And performance analysis between the RunC and Kata container runtime. So here we analyze all the security related issue, why we have to use the Kata container. So if security is a concern. And performance analysis of virtualization technologies and network function virtualization and edge deployment. So Vaibhav Agarwal, again, it's a IMTech student. So it's a part of his thesis work. So he has taken some 5 different containers, so like Docker containers, Kata containers, Nabla containers, Google gvisor, Amazon Firecrackers, different containers, and analyze the performance of all the containers. And simplify container orchestration with the Kubernetes by Shubham Agarwal. He's a MS student. He has given presentation in Open Source India conference in last year. And POX controller based QoS solution for 5G systems network slicing. So it's an international conference. Again, it's by Nitya Ganesan. So these are the papers we have published related to this work. And to conclude this one, the enterprise applications, it's evolving themes moving from starting from development process. So waterfall model to agile. Now agile model is moving to the DevOps side. And application architecture, so starting from monolithic to entire architecture, now it's moving towards microservices. And deployment and packages, so using the data center on-premise or physical servers, moving to virtual machine, and now it's moving into the containers. That application infrastructure, so data center to hosted, and now moving into the cloud. So microservices and containerization work well when used together. And if you develop microservice within a container, then you can gain all of the inherent benefits of containerizations. So containers, microservices, and cloud computing. So if all are working together to bring application development and delivery to new levels, which is definitely not possible with the traditional methodologies and environments. So the next generation approaches to add agility, efficiency, reliability, and security to the software development lifecycle. So all of this, whatever we explained here, which leads to faster delivery of applications and enhancement to end users and the market. And references, so these are the 3 places we found it's useful, particularly for this report. So with this, I conclude this session. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Thangaraju. That's a great talk. A big hand of applause from all of us. There are a few questions on the chat, but I can see there are a lot more unmuted. So I'll let Professor RC and Professor Dinesh ask you questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, nothing. Thank you, Professor Thangaraju. That was a wonderful. I think you did a great job in condensing all of it in 1 hour. That's wonderful. So my only question is slightly probably related to what Professor Meenakshi also alluded to. I'm saying with see the whole containerization is miniaturizing our development environments, right? So if I want to solve a large task, so at one extreme we used to have this monolithic computers which used to solve the problem. But then, so when we went into entire architectures, and then now we go into microservices and so on. And on top of it, if you are implementing microservices on top of containers, my only concern there is that the number of amount of moving parts is increasing drastically, and so that also leads to increase in the opportunity for errors or failures, right?
Okay.
So in your experience or in your view of what's going around, of course, you did talk about operations or tools like Kubernetes, which can help us.
Yeah.
But in general, is that a concern that we should be worried about, or what is it?
Yes, definitely. If you have monolithic application, if you move into the container, so it will create a lot of issues.
No. So my question is, so if we re-architect and create multiple services and so on, so effectively what's going to happen is, purely as a system administrator, I had to be worried about only one machine being up.
Yeah, correct.
Right.
Correct.
So now I have to worry about 1,000 containers being up.
Yeah, correct.
For example,
correct.
right? So is that a concern?
No, it's not a concern, sir. So even 10,000, even lakhs of containers, we can run it. So each services, we can create a pod. So inside the pod, that will take care of one service. So if you want to create multiple container inside a pod, you can create. So if you have n number of services, you can create n number of pods. All these pods will be managed by the Kubernetes. You will get the nice dashboard. You can see that whether the pod is running or not. Okay. So the communication.
Okay, I'll kind of close with a specific question. Maybe it will be good if you can point to any research which purely talks about the number of faults that occurs in applications of different characteristics. In fact, this can be a great thesis work for some of your students. Okay. You, for example, you take, I mean, of course, we have to study in a production environment. But if you have an application, monolithic application, for example, I mean, when I say monolithic, it could still be entire, but deployed on, say, 1 or 2 servers, okay, as opposed to a containerized the same application, which is containerized and say running in 20, 30 containers. So what is the runtime number of faults that are being reported, which are attributed to the infrastructure, right? So that can be a good study
Okay.
to tell us about the reliability, overall reliability of the system, whether it has gone up or not. I mean, the manageability has definitely gone up,
Okay.
but whether the reliability has got any impact or not is something that I'm curious. I'm sure this is something that we can look into future. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So I'll check with the Shubham. Shubham, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So do you have
Uh,
any
Yes,
suggestion
sir.
for
So regarding this, what we can do is like we have a pod, on a, let's say on a cloud node, we have this application running. So let's say we have a HTTP server running, and over the HTTP server, a fault occurs. But it's not that we'll be having only one container that is running that particular HTTP server. In front of that, we'll also be having a load balancer.
Okay.
So over the load balancer, it will check. The Kubernetes will automatically check if let's say if a container is down, it will automatically restart a container. Then
Okay.
behind the load balancer, it will automatically redirect all the traffic to the other up containers.
Understood.
So meanwhile, your process won't be stopped or anyway disrupted.
Got it.
It's just that it will buy the time. The Kubernetes will buy the time.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Shubham.
Yeah, thanks, Shubham. Thanks, Nangraju. I'll just ask Professor Prasanna if he's there to unmute himself and ask his questions, because he has a series of questions in the chat.
They have been typed already. They've been typed.
Can you please ask
Okay.
him directly?
Okay, so here,
Finally,
yeah, Professor, so I can understand your question. So what processor architecture will support? So it's not architecture level virtualization. It's not a hardware level virtualization. It is a kernel level virtualization. So if you have Linux kernel, so you can run the Docker container because it will use the Linux kernel features,
the
namespace, and
performance
CPU.
for high speed, what's the impact of this? And this is the second question I asked. But what's the impact on performance?
Impact on perform, because the entire container will run as a process inside the Linux system. That's all.
The thing is, does it use semaphores? Does it use test and set and so on and so forth extensively, which could cause memory conflicts and bank conflicts and so on and so forth in the machine? I just want to know.
Okay, memory conflict, because each container will access its own memory space as a in the main memory. So each container has its own space in the memory, like user process memory. So it will use it. So if you are using semaphore or any file locking or any locking mechanism, if it is waiting for the lock, definitely it will affect the performance of the system. The container itself, to create the container or run the container or delete the container, so it's on the fly, you can do it. But in your application or programming, it's waiting for some IO operation, or if it is waiting for some event to occur, so it may affect the performance. Even not only container, even for any other system also.
So okay, so there is no, let us say, kernel level and user level memory space overhead due to containerization, which is significant in most applications, is what you say.
Generally, they won't create any kernel level applications inside the kernel. So they will create only the user application. So kernel level program, they will not create inside the container, because it's a kernel is shared by the container. So you should not create any kernel level program, device driver, or file system on that.
Okay, the other thing is, how critical is high speed bandwidth for use of containerization and generally in cloud? For example, do you have high resolution visualizations run on the cloud and remotely? Let us say 2000 by 2K by 2K or 2K by 4K, 72 frame per second type things.
Just like how you are accessing the VM, the same way you are accessing the container. That's all. So if it is working for virtual machine, it will work for the container also. But once you get the access, then after that, how quickly you can develop the application, testing the application, deploy the application.
I'm only talking about visualization, interactive visualization. Let's say you are seeing you're actually doing movie editing and so on and so forth, very high resolution movie editing, would you use a cloud?
Yeah, we can use the cloud. There are so many cloud providers. They are supporting the container as a service. So you can use the cloud. You will get the nice GUI dashboard and all.
There's a comment by Milind Gandhi. He's saying there are interesting applications for this in safety critical applications, especially in situations like infotainment, display of cars, etc. Then there is a comment by Pallav. Well, ARM architectures do not support Docker. So presently the most popular architecture for containerization is x86. Okay.
Yeah.
That
The Uttam
Uttam,
question, I think
what is the future for
future market, yeah,
AWS,
who
Azure,
might
and
lead the market considering technology, price, infrastructure. Now, till 2020, AWS is in the top in the list. Next Azure, then Google.
Meenakshi is given some
Yeah,
a
she has
reference
given
from
some
Illinois.
references. Yeah.
Yeah, and she has also commented that her student is working on verification of microservices.
Okay.
Professor Dinesha, I guess, has been waiting for a very long time to ask a question. Professor Dinesha, you want to unmute yourself and ask? Is there a concept of virtual data center? Is what he
Actually,
says.
virtual data center, it's nothing but that cloud. That's all. It's a complete data center is in the cloud. That's all. We can use it. But here the container is useful. So instead of using virtual machine, you can use the container. So the computing resource usage will be very less, and agility. It's a very quickly you can start, stop, run the container.
Okay, yeah, thank you. And the talk is a very good talk. So the reason why I asked about the virtual data center is, suppose I create a virtual data center in wherever in cloud or wherever it is. Tomorrow, if, for example, the law of the country says that the data center should be in, say, in India, okay? Then I can create a data structure, I mean, a physical data center in India and move my virtual data center to the physical data center. So I just thought from that context, is there is there any facility to create a virtual data center?
Okay, within the data center itself, so using virtualization technology, so you can create the complete virtual environment. But if you want to move the data, then it's better to put it in
If I want to move the entire virtual data center to the real data center.
Correct. So we can get that private cloud from the cloud provider. So we can create the complete virtual data center. So where you no need to move anywhere, wherever you go, you can access it from there.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
it's a good talk.
Thanks, Professor.
Okay, looks like yeah, they have exhausted all their questions. Thank you so much, Professor Tangaraju, for an exciting talk and working on this. And I'm guessing you're doing a lot on the MOSIP project as well, which is very important for the institute as such. So thank you for all the work. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor.